Hey, I'm MMorris, and this is my discussion on SSH service hardening for ISA4220. Moving into the technical discussion of SSH, what it actually stands for is Secure Shell Protocol, and what this does is it operates on the TCP/IP layer of the computer or network, and SSH actually kind of functions almost like HTTP. Getting into the parts of this protocol, the shell is just the software that allows a user to communicate to the core of the operating system. With the shell, there is a shell account, and what this does is it allows a user to have access to shells on different computers, making it so that you can write a command on a remote computer, but that must be monitored by an administrator of the whole network. And shell accounts are most of the time used for file storage, email, and a couple other things. SSH version 1 and SSH version 2 are the main protocols to access shell accounts right now. SSH uses a public key encryption to replace Telnet and many other non-different secure protocols. The versions are used for many different things. It can be used to set up a virtual private network and transfer files from those. They can write a command on another computer, and you can also use it to browse using encrypted proxy clients, which is helpful for security. Getting into the file transfers, there's SSH has this thing called a secure file transfer protocol, and this is SSH's way of transferring files from a from VPN to another VPN. And SFTP uses a public key security, and it encrypts the data that needs to be transferred, and intercepts are fairly inadequate. And now we're going to move into the best practices of SSH. When you use SSH or Secure Shell Protocol, you want to make sure you use the newest version, which is SSHv2. Getting into the next best practice, with a machine that has two network interfaces or it's running SSH on a firewall, you want to configure it. You want to configure the open SSH to listen to a specific address. Normally, it would bind to every network address, but if a computer has two, then it would most likely bind to the trusted network, and it would have it untrusted. This is why you want to configure the open SSH to listen to a specific address. The next best practice was to disable the password authentication and enable public key authentication. Brute force is normally used on passwords, and if someone does not have a good password, then they can easily gain access to the root of the computer. And if that happens, then it's going to be bad for your system. And the final best practice would be to enable to use the TCP wrappers. They're used to limit the access of the TCP services on a machine and the specific address or the network that is able to access the Secure Shell Protocol services. And those are just four of a lot of best practices for SSH. And now we're going to get into the actual implementing of the best practices we just talked about, which is called as the service hardening of SSH. When it comes to SSH v2, you want to go to the protocol line and change it to 2 and 1, or you can make it just 2. And if you do just 2, you have to go to the host key line and add the RSA and DSA so that those are in use. And then from there, you have to restart the daemon, and SSH v2 would be in use on the network. The next hardening technique is binding a specific address for the open SSH, and you want a specific address because the possibility of an untrusted or trusted interface on the machine. To do this, you actually have to go into the configuration file and change the listen address line. It might be configured to be listening to 0.0.0, and you'll need to change it to the to your IP address or the IP address you wish to use. Once it's changed, you restart the SSH daemon, and from there it'll only listen to the SSH requests that are from your IP address. The other ones will be disregarded. For public key authentication, you'll want to go into the configuration file, and you'll want to change the RSA authentication and pub key authentication to say yes, and password authentication to say no. After restarting the daemon, you'll be locked out, and you'll have to generate the key for this, and you'll use the SSH-key generation command, and then you can use the -t DSA. You can use RSA or RSA1 to generate the key for these services. Once that's been generated, the terminal will request for a few things, and you'll have to decide where to save it and the passcase for the key. And once that's done, it'll be saved and secured. From there, you'll copy and paste the file to the machine you wish to use SSH on. And to do that, you can use the cat command. Once all that's been done, you can log in, and it'll show up and require a passphrase for the key. And then you will be using, once it allows you in, you'll be using the public key authentication. The final hardening technique that we are going to use is the enabling of TCP wrappers. In order to do that, you're actually going to have to make sure that the SSH will work with TCP wrappers, and OpenSSH must be built with the -TCP-wrappers. Once that's done, you will have to edit the etc host deny and allow files. It's suggested to deny everything and specifically allow certain services. To do that, you go into the host deny file and write all and then all, and for the allow file, you'll write out SSHD and then the network you wish to allow and the address that you wish to allow. Now, once you finish that, you make sure the TCP wrappers deny access for someone trying to SSH into a machine. These are just a few of the service hardening techniques that are used for SSH, and there are many more out there. These are my references, and I hope y'all enjoyed the presentation. Sorry, my voice is a little gone. I woke up this morning and I've lost my voice. But thank y'all for listening, and have a good day.